Next, we will have a video message from Nury. Nury is a longtime friend and brother. He is the first US educated Uyghur American lawyer and a human rights advocate. He was born in a re-education camp at the height of China's Cultural Revolution and spent the first several months of his life in detention with his mother. He came to the United States in 1995 as a student and was granted asylum in 1998. In May 2020, Speaker of the House of Representatives Nancy Pelosi appointed Nury as a commissioner to the US Commission on International Religious Freedom. In September 2020, Nury was named one of the Time 100 most influential people in the world. Now let's watch his video.
Good morning. I'd like to begin by thanking the Citizen Power Initiative for China for inviting me to participate in this important conference on behalf of the US Commission on International Religious Freedom, or USIRF. It is truly an honor to join you today. Since 2000, the Interethnic and Interfaith Conference has provided an unparalleled venue that brings together a diverse group of ethnic, religious, cultural, and regional leaders to address political and human rights issues in China. Indeed, as we gather today, I cannot help but notice the great diversity as well as the strengths and unity we collectively represent. Tibetans, Uyghurs, Mongolians, mainland activists, Hong Kongers, Macau and Taiwanese people, Christians, Muslims, and Falun Gong practitioners. This is truly a remarkable gathering. At the time when the Chinese Communist Party is actively trying to erode and erase the religious, ethnic, cultural identities that define us, even using genocidal practices unseen since the Holocaust, our gathering today presents a counterexample to CCP's egregious policy of forced assimilation at all cost. The message we are conveying today together is loud and clear, that unity can be realized through diversity, pluralism, and through our shared commitment to human rights and universal values, rather than force uniformity through neglect and violence. That is why today's topic, Stop China's Ethnic and Cultural Genocide, is especially relevant and timely. It gives us an opportunity to highlight the Chinese government's persecution and abuses of people in China who are from many different ethnic, religious, and cultural backgrounds. It also presents an opportunity for us to think collectively on how to respond to these egregious and oppressive policies and practices. I'm sure you are well aware of the crisis occurring today in the Uyghur region, otherwise known as Xinjiang, where the Uyghur people are struggling and suffering immensely under the iron fist of the CCP. But this is also a struggle and plight we all face and share against an authoritarian regime that disregards human rights, religious freedom, the very obligation that it has promised to uphold. Since 2017, the Chinese government has detained millions of Uyghur, Kazakh, and other Muslims in the concentration camps in the region, often targeting individuals engaged in Islamic religious practices, such as growing a beard or wearing a veil, as well as for so-called family planning violations. Former detainees have reported that they suffered torture, rape, forced abortion, and sterilization, political indoctrination, and other abuses. Nearly 500,000 Uyghur Muslim children have been separated from detained parents and placed in the boarding schools, where they are forced to phrase the Chinese Communist Party and to speak Mandarin Chinese. Chinese governments initially denied the existence of the internment camps, but later claimed that the camps were created for re-education and vocational training purposes. This pretext sounds innocuous, but the reality of these internment camps is much more sinister. For example, Chinese authorities claimed that they have graduated and released all detainees. but based on the credible reports published by reputable international organizations, the number of camps actually has expanded, suggesting the high likelihood that the authorities continuing its detention of ethnic Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities in these modern-day concentration camps. Furthermore, Chinese authorities are actually enslaving Muslim detainees to perform forced labor in these camps, making products for international companies, including US companies, that are eventually sold in the US market and around the world. Recently, there have been reports indicating that the Chinese authorities might have expanded its forced labor practices to Tibet. Meanwhile, the Chinese government is also carrying out a wide-scale destruction of religious sites and symbols that are important to Uyghur ethno-religious identity. Make no mistakes, these are not isolated incidents. For many years since Xi Jinping came to power, Chinese authorities have likewise carried out extensive destruction of religious sites and symbols that are important to Christians and Tibetan Buddhists. Perhaps most egregious of all is the Chinese government's genocidal practices of forced sterilization and abortion, which it has implemented against the Uyghurs and other Muslims. In Kashgar, a place of my birth, and Khotan, two of the prefectures that make up the Uyghur heartland, combined natural population growth rates fell by whopping 84% between 2015 and 2018. Last year, Xinjiang's birth rates declined by further 24%, with ethnic minority regions seeing stronger decline between 30 to 56%. In contrast, birth rates across the whole country fell by only 4.2% between 2018 and 2019. This disproportionate decline in the Uyghur population relative to the general population is disturbing. It has caused serious concerns among experts who are calling these population control measures, quote unquote, demographic genocide, and not simply, quote unquote, cultural genocide anymore. These governments' egregious policy in the Uyghur region could very well meet the legal threshold for genocide under the provision of Genocide Convention as well as the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. In many ways, the atrocities occurring in the Uyghur region today bear striking similarities to the barbaric crimes that the fascist Japanese Empire committed against the Chinese people during World War II. As China commemorates this year the 75th anniversary of its fight against the Japanese invasion and occupation, we are reminded that these indelible, painful historic memories continue to be etched in the minds of many in China. Meanwhile, we cannot help but to observe the glaring hypocrisy on the part of the ruling CCP and its political elites who claim to have liberated the Chinese nation from Japan all those years ago, and yet are now brutalizing, enslaving, and slowly killing off an entire ethnic religious group. Friends, this is a somber reality we are facing. A brutal communist regime determined to erase the unique ethnic and religious identity of an entire people. This atrocity demands unflinching and concerted determination on our part to respond and to take action. Plight of the Uyghur people and other Turkic Muslims is our collective plight, while the struggles of Tibetan Christian Hong Kongers, Falun Gong practitioners too are collectively our struggles. Together we must speak out boldly and clearly by exposing and condemning the Chinese Communist Party for the crimes it has committed against ethnic minorities and people of faith. Together, we must think creatively, using all resources at our disposal, and to counter the CCP and to stop the pain and suffering it has caused on many, including the Uyghur people. I look forward to partnering and working with you all in this endeavor. Finally, allow me to quote the post-World War II confession by German Lutheran pastor Martin Niemöller, lamenting the cowardice of German intellectuals and clergies, including his own, following the Nazis' rise to power. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionist, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Nury 啊。刚才我忘了用中文介绍一下 Nury 啊。Nury 呢，他是这个维族的这个朋友，他是第一个在美国受到教育成为律师的维吾尔族人。他呢是出生在这个文化大革命时期，出生在这个劳改的场所啊。他头几个月和他妈妈是在这个监禁中度过的。他是1995年来美国，98年获得这个政治避难。今年5月份呢，众议院的议长Nancy Pelosi 就是贝洛西议长提名他为美国的国际宗教自由委员会的委员。那么今年的9月份，《时代》杂志选出100个世界上最有影响的人物，他是其中一个。他刚才在演讲中，首先对我们这个会议做了一些这个很正面的评价。从2000年开始，我们这个会议，当时他这个 Nury 他参加了好多届，当时他说这个对这个会议的价值，他给了充分的肯定。同时，他认为我们这些广义的族群，包括维吾尔族人呐、藏人、蒙古人、香港、台湾，甚至包括这个澳门，还有这个大陆的异议人士、人权人士，再加上基督徒法轮功这些这个宗教受迫害的人士能够聚集在一起它非常重要，也对我们的未来的工作寄予非常高的希望。然后呢，他讲了很多这个关于最近几年的在中共在新疆实行的这个大面积的这个人权侵害，包括这个集中营，这个我们大家都已经比较了解了。那么他用这个出生率这几年的降低，以及很多的事件，证明中国政府在新疆实施了这个种族灭绝。然后呢，同时呢，他也呼吁这个全世界能够关注，尤其是汉人，能够对这个事件有充分的认识和关注。他也提到了在前不久，中共这个有对这个对抗战胜利抗日胜利75周年做了一些纪念那宣称是把中国的各民族从日本的统治下解放出来。但是他觉得非常讽刺的是，中国政府呢把现在所有的少数民族都奴役化这个殖民化所以他觉得这是一个虚伪hypocrisy。然后他希望我们中国人能够更多的关注这样的议题同时最后呢，他是用一个德国这个非常著名的牧师的一句话，他说这个结尾的，他说意思就是说，当纳粹去这个迫害其他人群的时候，你无动于衷，你觉着 OK 和我无关，另外一个人群和你还无关，再一个人群还无关，到最后迫害到你头上的时候，已经没有人为你说话了。好，